In this world, we can look back at ourselves. We have images of the past etched into our landscape, tangible things created by people for millennia before us. And rock art is some of the most magnificent human art to behold. Across the world, across culture, across time, people have made mark on stone. They have proved their existence and have shared parts of themselves through this art. Rock art is one of the earliest forms of symbolic artistic behavior in human history. Proof in the timeline of human thought, culture, and storytelling. It shows us what early humans and humans today thought of their world and how they understood their place in it. It shows up everywhere. Numerous caves in France, Altamira in Spain, and these are celebrated worldwide as masterpieces of early human creativity. These are exceptionally beautiful sites with an abundance of rich history. But on the other side of the world, dated at almost 30,000 years before, in the red earth of the Western Australian desert, there is Murujuga, home to one of the largest, densest, and most diverse collections of rock art engravings, or petroglyphs, in the world. This art is phenomenal and is still incredibly relevant to the contemporary indigenous population that live there now. Murujuga is the only place on Earth where the story of the people and their changing environment has been continuously documented and recorded through art for more than 50,000 years. And right now, it's being actively destroyed. Welcome home. Today's video is a little different. Aboriginal Australian history and archaeology is a vital and active part of the country. And as we speak, as you're watching this, it is actively fading away. Among the oldest surviving human artworks on Earth, Murujuga in Australia's Dampier archipelago is a little bit of magic in our modern world. But it sits unprotected, dangerously exposed. The site is a sprawling rocky landscape filled with more than 1 million individual engravings or petroglyphs carved into the rocks, some dated as far back as 50,000 years. There's nothing like this anywhere else in the world. And these petroglyphs are quite literally a look into the past. Some of these carvings depict animals that are now extinct, like the thylacine, and weapons and tools that are no longer used. There are geometric patterns and the oldest known art of human faces anywhere in the world. I cannot express how insanely beautiful this site is, but how meaningful it is. This art provides a direct link to stories, customs, and knowledge of the Aboriginal people of Australia. The quantity and magnitude of these engravings are a testament to memory and kinship. And this site isn't just ancient, it's continuous. It's a living record of human presence, adaptation, storytelling, and spirituality across time and across generations. From an archaeological perspective, Murujuga is a wealth of knowledge and a very unique case. There's so much happening here. There's an immense timescale. Like I said, some of these engravings have been dated back to 50,000 years. That's some of the oldest known rock art that we can date. There's an unparalleled density of imagery, just so many things being depicted here of all sorts of themes, as well as uninterrupted cultural use by the traditional owners of the land. While cave sites in Europe, like I mentioned earlier, are often associated with Paleolithic bursts of activity here and there, Murujuga is quite special in that it shows us a continuous relationship between people and place over millennia. And this is still a meaningful and sacred site to the Nyardanyali peoples of the land. Beyond just the rock art itself, the peninsula that it's in is full of archaeological density. There are occupation sites and middens and quarries and stone tool assemblages and ceremonial places. The archaeological materials here are such a rare insight into Australian Aboriginal history, how people adapted to rising sea levels, shifts in flora and fauna. It's in every sense of the word a treasure. But despite its unparalleled significance, the site is not very well known in the global archaeological conversation or in popular knowledge. Did you know about it? This isn't because of a lack of relevance, but because of a systemic and historical underrecognition of Indigenous knowledge and non-Western heritage sites within archaeology and within Australian education systems. And people and industries take advantage of the lack of eyes on Indigenous history, knowing that it can be buried and knowing that it can be swept under the rug. Since the 1960s, Murujuga has been the location for major industrial development, desecrating its natural landscape. Research has now estimated that up to 25% of the rock art on Murujuga has been impacted in some way by the industry that continues to be developed here. The engravings on these rocks now have no chance of being seen in their natural landscape. There have been major gas plant facilities operating in Murujuga for decades, and these have changed the stones. The patina, the dark outer layer that once preserved and defined the petroglyphs, is now fading as the pH levels on the rocks become more and more acidic. Rock surfaces are becoming brittle and porous, and pale. Lines that have endured since the Ice Age are beginning to dissolve in front of our eyes. Why does one of the world's greatest cultural assets and most sacred places have to carry the burden of its country's industrialization? You cannot place industry within a landscape like this. But the Australian government has allowed rapid development here for decades, and it has no intention of stopping. In the last couple weeks, Australia's government just approved the extension of one of the world's largest gas facilities, Woodside, up until 2070. Woodside was only supposed to run until 2030 to try and meet Australia's net zero emissions by 2050 goal, but that has been revised, and now Woodside is able to operate until 2070. This was Environment Minister Murray Watt's first major decision in his new role. Woodside operates just 8 kilometres from where the rocks lay at Murujuga. This area of Australia, the Northwest Shelf, is already the country's third highest emitting facility, producing roughly 6 million tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions every year. And this is not a necessary expansion, and it could have been rejected under Australian law on the grounds that it would impact native species and cultural heritage, but it wasn't. Over the past 6 years, there's been a team of scientists monitoring the site to determine whether the pollution created from this gas plant has actually affected the rocks. And just last week, the report was released to the public after being swept under the rug for a year. It is 800 pages long and confirms that there has been damage to the Murujuga rock art from industrial emissions. It also seems to have been slightly tampered with, and specifically at least one graph was requested to be altered against the wishes of the authors of the report. The graph in question was about what they deemed acceptable levels of pollution and early warning indicators of the pollution getting too high for these rocks to be safe at all. There were 2 lines representing this pollution threshold, and the lower line was intentionally removed before publishing. Woodside insists on its desire to make the Northwest Shelf the largest petrochemical development in the Southern Hemisphere, a place that is known to be immensely culturally and archaeologically significant. Archaeologist Ken Mulvaney, who has worked on the site for a number of years, has stated that every single thing the gas plant does has an impact on the cultural heritage of the site. From the noise of the machinery to the flares going off, not to mention the 13,000 tons of nitrous oxide pouring out of this gas factory every year and making a new home on top of the engravings of these thousands of years old rocks. Engravings that have sustained 50,000 years of natural forces, perfectly preserved by their environment. Now, in just the last 40 years of industrialization in this area, are fading away. The University of Western Australia has actually digitized over 1,000 photos from the site taken in the 1970s and compared them to those taken earlier this year. There's a discernible fading occurring on these surfaces. The Australian government has allowed this to happen before. In 2020, 2 ancient rock shelters in Western Australia were legally blasted for the mining of iron ore. They contained 46,000 years of Aboriginal history. Flakestone artifacts, faunal remains, unique stone tools, preserved human hair, and a sediment record containing thousands of years of environmental changes. They were, more importantly, of great cultural significance to the Putu Kunti Kurama and Pinikura people, who have taken care of these sacred spaces for over 40,000 years. I've worked on sites like these 2 around Australia, and seeing the destruction that industry negligence and people's own selfishness has on the landscape is sickening. If we allow Murujuga to vanish under the weight of industry, we're losing Aboriginal heritage and Australian history, and we're erasing one of the oldest and most profound records of human existence on Earth. The iron ore will run out, the gas plants will cloud the sky, and then what? When there's nothing left, when you've lost the Earth and stripped the world of its meaning, what will you spend all your money on? I'm making this video because I want you to know about Murujuga, and I hope you've watched this far into it, because there are things that you can do to help this site. Firstly, there's the Murujuga Aboriginal Corporation, which is the primary organisation protecting the area at the moment. I'll leave a link to them below. You can donate to them, you can keep updated with what they're doing, as well as Save Our Songlines, which is another group doing a lot to protect very important Aboriginal sites. There is, of course, a petition to sign. At the end of the day, the expansion of Woodside is not something that you or I can stop. But given that there are quite a lot more of you watching me than there ever have been before, I would be so grateful if you could talk about Murujuga to anyone you might know, because sites just like it have been destroyed because mining companies and the Australian government didn't think anyone would say anything. It is ridiculous that they think they can do something like this and that no one is going to be angry about it. I'm angry, and I hope that you are as well. I will see you again under much less dire circumstances, but thank you so much for watching. And fuck Woodside.